Documentaries, conspiracy theories, sarcasm and beer. It's a conversation, start listening, cause we're all here. Bobby Pickles Podcast.
That's me! Thanks for tuning in to episode 12 of the Bobby Pickles Podcast. On this episode, I'm speaking with Dr. Lawrence Gelman, a South Texas-based physician, hospital administrator, novice rancher, conservative activist, and media personality. He's the host of the Dr. Lawrence Gelman Show, a radio program focusing on today's political, social, and economic issues from a traditional and unrelenting conservative perspective. His show can be heard around the Rio Grande Valley area of Texas on 710 KURV, and even up here in my neck of the woods on WVNJ 1160 AM in northern New Jersey, Rockland and Westchester counties, and some other areas of New York and Long Island. Dr. Gelman, thank you for being on the Bobby Pickles Podcast. Welcome to the show.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
So, you're against pro-choice, Roe v. Wade, global warming, gun control, Obamacare. Doctor, what aren't you against?
Yeah. The Constitution. I'm all for the Constitution.
You're all for the Constitution. You talk about a lot of different things. So you characterize yourself as a conservative, right? Actually, you say an unrelenting conservative perspective. Can we talk about that a little bit?
Conservative is really relative to the society that one lives in. You can be conservative in the Soviet Union and you're a communist. If you're a conservative in the United States, you're a constitutionalist. So the term, this is the way I perceive conservatism. Conservatism means one thing only, as far as I'm concerned, and that is someone that adheres to the word of and intent of the Constitution.
Right. What's that old adage that they talk about? Show me a young person who's not a liberal, and I'll show you somebody who doesn't have a heart, and show me an older person that is not a conservative, and I'll show you somebody who has no brain. It's something like that, right?
Yeah, I've heard that, but like I say, the terms liberal and conservative really have to be related to the society that under discussion.
Right.
So the terminology may change if you're in a society which is based upon a different type of basis.
Because when you look in the definition of conservative or liberal, if you look it up in like Webster's dictionary or something like that, liberal, it says somebody who's open-minded, they're willing to accept change, and a conservative is somebody who's resistant to change, they just want the same.
No, that's not true. A liberal is not necessarily open-minded. A liberal is just someone that is open to change. And a conservative is someone that is an originalist, okay? And that's what they mean. I don't really much care what Webster says. That's
what is an originalist?
Is, and that's what a liberal is. A liberal is certainly not open-minded. A liberal is just someone that doesn't believe in original principles.
Okay. I don't know. I guess I'm a little confused on what where I really fall into all this. I do know that I am open-minded, though, and I'm willing to change. And if somebody has a compelling argument and it sounds logical to me, I'll hear them out. I'm not going to shut it down or anything like that. So can we talk about some of these different stances that you have?
Go ahead.
Let's talk. What's your stance on Obamacare?
Well, the Affordable Care Act is nothing but an extension of pre-existing programs called Medicaid and Medicare. Let's take a look at Medicaid and Medicare for a moment. Medicaid and Medicare are the most expensive insurances in the world. Medicare costs over $15,000 a year for everyone that's eligible, and Medicaid about $8,000 a year for everyone that's eligible, including children. Now, even though they're the most expensive insurances in the world, they reimburse the worst among all insurances, less than half, and in case of Medicaid, only 25% of what a private insurance will reimburse. So then the question is, where's all the money going? Well, the money's going to people of political influence. That's where the money is going. It's going to the executives of pharmaceutical corporations, of medical equipment companies, of nursing homes, large hospital corporations, and the like. I think we need to understand that the reason Medicaid and Medicare exist is not the one professed by the government, which says that it is to guarantee access to quality health care for poor Americans or elderly Americans. The reason Medicare and Medicaid exist is to remove the decision-making power from the physician and from the patient and transfer it to bureaucrats in Washington, D.C., in order to increase the power of the government and to funnel money, taxpayer dollars, to the friends, cronies, relatives, and contributors of politicians. The Affordable Care Act is simply an extension of Medicare and Medicaid to a wider group of individuals. But the underlying principle is exactly the same, to empower the government and basically to steal money from the American people and remove the decision-making authority from the American people and hand it over to bureaucrats in Washington, D.C. The Affordable Care Act has got nothing to do with access or quality. It has everything to do with government control. So that's the bottom line. And it will not do anything that Barack Obama predicts it to do. The number of uninsured will go up. The number of poorly insured will vastly increase. Those who are not insured right now will not become insured under the way that it is structured today. First, the undocumented aliens or immigrants will not be insured and don't have to be insured because not being citizens, they do not fall under the requirements of the Affordable Care Act. Second, individuals who do not pay taxes, do not pay income taxes, also do not fall under the umbrella because, according to the Supreme Court, the Affordable Care Act penalty is a tax, and that is why the Internal Revenue Service is going to be the one in charge of it. If you do not pay federal income taxes, you cannot be penalized. Therefore, even if you don't buy insurance, they cannot penalize you for not buying health insurance because you do not have an income tax. Third, the large companies and school districts and cities and large employers in general are going to abandon paying for health insurance because the penalty they pay of $2,000 per employee is significantly less than the cost of healthcare insurance, which averages about $7,000 per employee. So that the large employers and even the cities and school districts and the like are going to drop coverage from all of their employees, take a $2,000 penalty, but they'll save $5,000 or so per employee, and the employees will fall into a subsidized Medicaid type of program, which will function the way the Medicaid programs now, which is to deny access and to pay so poorly that no hospital or physician wants to take Medicaid.
Do you feel like any of this weighs into the fact that physicians are just mad about taking a pay cut?
Physicians are not taking a pay cut. Right now, physicians account for less than 10% of the healthcare dollar. So don't be blaming physicians for the healthcare economy. The physicians are on the bottom rung of the ladder. And the cost of healthcare is going to skyrocket anyway, because what you don't seem to understand is that government-sponsored healthcare is not to save money or provide quality health care. It is to take money and give it to those of political influence. I'm not talking about the poor people on Medicaid or the elderly on Medicare. I'm talking about where the money really goes, which is the guys who own Pfizer and Glaxo and Boston Scientific and General Electric and Siemens, or the big hospital chains such as Columbia or Universal Health or community hospitals or whatever hospital they are, or the nursing homes, or the rehab facilities, or the psychiatric industry, which is a huge boondoggle. That's where the money is going, okay? So it's not going to the doctors. It's going to the big corporations. If you don't believe that, look at the Fortune 500 and see how many CEOs of large providers, they're in there. No doctors in there. You got hedge fund guys in there. You don't have doctors in there.
So you're saying right now that's where the money's funneling to? What about with Obamacare? Obamacare is going to add more to funneling money into all these
it's going to
bureaucracies?
exacerbate it. Read the law. They're going to take caps off of rehab. They're going to take caps off of psychiatric care. That's the biggest fraud right now in medicine, is in those two fields. That's where most of the money is being wasted today. It's untold billions of dollars going to pharmaceutical companies and rehab companies and nursing homes. That's where all the money is going, down a big, giant sinkhole.
What about all the good things? Like they say if somebody had a pre-existing condition, then, before you couldn't...
Scare me with the pre-existing condition.
Hey, listen, hold on one second, doctor. Give me 1 sec, all right?
If you have an automobile, you don't have insurance, you get into a car accident, do you expect the insurance company to sell you insurance so they can pay for your broken automobile? And then after they fix the automobile, then you drop the insurance and take whatever penalty exists? That's what that pre-existing nonsense is. Look, the government is a bunch of liars, okay? And they're going to concoct whatever lie they need in order to justify what they're doing. This whole pre-existing condition situation is a canard. It's so small, it's insignificant. It's just to pull the heartstrings of the ignorant who really don't understand what it is that's going on here.
But, sir, I've really seen this in a real way in my own life, though. My father had, skin cancer, something stupid on his skin. And because of that, it was considered a pre-existing condition. And between jobs, he was not able to get insurance. That's a true thing that happens to people. It happened in my circumstance, and I saw that was a real thing,
Look, is such a small percentage of everything that's done in healthcare. It is insignificant. I get so tired of these personal, every time I talk to one of you guys, it's always this personal thing that affected you, like your personal thing should be affecting me. Well, the bottom line is, I'm really not interested in paying for your health care. I'm not interested in paying for your children's education. I'm not interested in paying for your problems. And if I want to do it, I'll do it. But for the government to put a gun to my head and say, I've got to cover your problems, that is not what this country is all about. And I'm tired of my money to cover your problems or the problems of people that have children out of wedlock, or people who don't take care of themselves, or who are morbidly obese, or take drugs, or are alcoholics. I'm tired of my dollars being spent to take care of other people's problems. And I'll tell you something else. I don't know what the deal is with your father's skin cancer, but that should cost peanuts to take care of. That's a very simple procedure to be done. It's excision of a skin lesion. The only reason it costs more than it ought to, you can thank the government for that, and you can thank the large corporations for that, because that is a problem that shouldn't cost very much to take care of.
First of all, Doc, let's just relax here, okay? Let's not be so adversarial or whatever.
I'm perfectly relaxed.
Okay. I am too. And the fact of the matter is, I'm not talking about the fact that my father's skin cancer is a relatively inexpensive surgery or whatever it is. It's the fact that that disqualifies you from getting insurance. And, furthermore, sir, I gotta tell you, I'll give you another personal thing, because, that's when you really start paying attention, is when things affect you personally.
Affects you personally does not make it a valid argument.
I feel like it does. And you know what? Here's another thing, okay? Personally, I have family in Italy, right? I go to Italy a lot. Italy is the second best healthcare system in the world. And Canada.
Stop right there. You don't know what the hell you're talking about.
What are you talking about? I don't know what all.
You don't know what you're talking about, and I'll tell you exactly why you don't know what you're talking about, because you don't bother to investigate anything that you say.
Okay.
The fact of the matter is, they look at two different statistics. Okay, one is infant mortality, and then life longevity. Let's talk about that for a second. Infant mortality, the United States is said to have about 6 deaths for every 1,000, and other countries are said to have less. The United States is the only country that counts a 23-weeker as a live birth. No other country, including Italy, counts a 23-weeker as a live birth. In Italy, they only consider a live birth a 26-weeker. Okay, what I mean by 26 weeks is they're born 26 weeks after conception versus 23 weeks after conception in the United States. Half the deaths that occur in infants occur less than 26 weeks of age. Therefore, if the United States had the same system of measurement as every other country, our infant mortality would be the best in the world and not number 20 or whatever. Longevity. Every ethnic group in the United States lives longer in the United States than in the country of origin. That means that every individual from India, of Indian ancestry, that lives in the United States lives longer in the United States than in India. Same thing with Russia or Africa and even Japan or Latin American countries. The reason that the average in the United States is lower than other countries is because you're comparing it to homogeneous populations such as Japan, which has a longevity of around 80 or 81 years of age, which is more than the United States, but they're all Japanese. Okay, they're different. If you look in Kenya, the average life expectancy is 50 years of age. So in the United States, we have Japanese and Kenyans. And the fact of the matter is that there are certain cultural and ethnic qualities which determine that have some effect on longevity. And so that people who come from African nations, they live 25 years longer in the United States than they do in Africa, but they still only live to be about, on the average, about 75 or 76 years of age. 25 years longer than in Africa, but still not as long as, let's say, people in Japan. And so the statistics that you're talking about are completely unreliable and are politically motivated. So something else, I don't know where the heck you get these numbers, but the United States, you want to look at some numbers, the United States, let's look at robotic assist devices. Do you know what a robotic assist device is? A robotic assist device is a surgical aid that is the standard of care for a number of surgeries, operations, primarily radical prostatectomies for cancer, for prostate cancer. Italy has only about 15 of those devices in their entire country. In the United States, we have 1,500, okay? In Italy, it's almost impossible for an average citizen with prostate cancer to have access to a surgeon who is trained in a robotic assist device. In the United States, every community has at least one. The same thing with the other technologies we have, whether it's hip or knee implants, whether it's MRIs and CAT scans. No other country approaches the United States. Let's take a look at Canada. Everybody talks about Canada. In Canada, there's one cardiac center for every 1.5 million people. One cardiac center for every 1.5 million people. In the United States, there's one cardiac center for every 100,000 people. More than 10 times greater availability. Now, those are the facts. You're not going to hear that from CNN or Fox News, and you're not going to hear that from the United Nations. But those are the facts, and you can look them up if you don't believe it. But when I hear garbage, that Italy or any European country or Canada has better health care than the United States, that is a politically motivated statement by people who haven't the slightest idea what they're talking about, don't know anything about health care, don't know anything about medicine, and don't know anything about deductive logic.
But what about the fact that I know these people personally and they have great health care and they seem to love it?
You don't know anybody personally that has great health care out of this United States. You don't know what the heck you're talking about because they get free health care like going to the emergency room. They don't get cardiac surgery over there. You know that in Eastern Europe, there's almost no cardiac surgery existing. Do you know that 99% of the neonatal units in the world are in the United States? And 99% of the neonatologists are in the United States. What kind of neonatal care do you seem to have in Italy? This is the way you investigate? You go to Italy and you know a couple of friends and they're satisfied? Well, let me tell you, let's see what happens when they get heart disease or cancer, and then we'll see how satisfied they are.
Yeah, they drink too much wine for that.
Talk to the people who are sick. Don't talk to people who are your friends having your little wine tasting out in the vineyards of Tuscany. Talk to the people who have to suffer under the inadequate healthcare systems that exist in most of the rest of the world.
Okay, fine, Dr. Gelman. Now, what about, let me ask you a question. Are you completely against Medicare and Medicaid in all aspects? What about Medicare Part C? What about Medicare Advantage plans?
Yes. They are a boondoggle. $1 trillion spent, wasted, because of Medicare and Medicaid. I've already explained to you why those are phony systems.
I know, but I'm asking
exist to enrich.
I'm asking specifically about Medicare Advantage plans where they have private insurers that provide Medicare. Same thing?
Oh, that's a bigger scam. You know what that is? That's a scam between the government and the insurance companies. I mean, I'm not letting the insurance companies off the hook. That program actually costs more than regular Medicare. Those managed Medicare programs managed by private insurers actually cost more to the taxpayer than the non-managed Medicare parts. And they are even more corrupt than Medicare, even more corrupt than the Medicare is because they exclude doctors, they pay off people, they deny access even more than Medicare does. You know, Medicare, if you want to have a good, let's say you have cataracts and you're on Medicare, and you want to have a good lens put in, Medicare won't cover that. You have to pay for that out of your pocket. Let's say you're on Medicare and you want a good knee implant put in. Medicare won't cover that. You got to pay out of your pocket. At least private insurances will cover the cost of the good implant. Medicare won't even do that. Medicaid won't even cover for those procedures at all.
Listen, you know what, Dr. Gelman, I'm not against you on this. I agree with a lot of the stuff you're saying. I really do, actually. I sold health insurance in Florida. I actually had my own insurance agency, and we sold health, life, and variable annuities, and we sold Medicare Advantage plans, and I saw the corruption and stuff, and I'm totally against it, 100%. But what do you think that should happen? I mean, you're against Obamacare, but what do you think America should do for our healthcare system? What should happen?
Well, what I would do is I would give every American a voucher, regardless of income, regardless of any consideration. I would give every single American a voucher for about $6,000. Right now, the healthcare system in the United States costs $2.5 trillion. If you gave every American adult over the age of 16 $6,000, you would be paying out like $1.5 trillion. And then you would cover the children, which will be a lot less expensive, for about $2,000 a piece. You give every child under 16 about a $2,000 voucher. Now, what that would do is put the decision-making into the hands of the individual. They can either go spend it directly for health care or buy health insurance with that. And I can assure you the insurance companies would love a system like that. And then what would happen is that once the individual is involved in the negotiations as to every procedure or every visit, then like any good negotiator, the prices will come down. Now, you know, if you go into a hospital today with cash, they'll give you a discount. Or whatever it is, they'll give you a discount. Well, the same thing will happen. If you're given a voucher and you start shopping around insurance companies, you know, if you want to buy insurance, you go online and say you want to buy insurance, my gosh, you can't get enough. They're going to call you day and night to buy insurance from them. And you can get a really good insurance policy for well under $6,000. And so if you gave every American a voucher for $6,000 or $5,000 or $7,000, whatever it happens to be, every adult American over 16, then that would put the power of the decision-making back into the hands of the consumer. And the government won't do that, not because it won't save money or won't work. The government won't do that because then the government loses control over your life and my life. And the government won't do that because government exists for no other reason than to control your life and to control my life.
No big government, right?
No big government. Let me tell you something.
Yes.
You know, there are some things which only government can do. You know what those things are?
Tell me.
War, genocide, mass murder, concentration camps, and slavery. Only government can do that. No other entity besides government can. So that's the kind of products that you want. And every time that has existed in the world, whether it's genocide, war, mass murder, slavery, concentration camps, there's always a government behind it. That's the product of government. And that's the only thing that nothing else but government can do.
Dr. Gelman, let me ask you a point-blank question. Do you think that our government set up the Sandy Hook shooting in order to get behind gun control and take away our assault weapons so that we could never...
Now, you know that governments create scenarios in order to achieve their goals. The Nazis said that the Germans in Czechoslovakia were being mistreated, which is why the Nazis had to go into Czechoslovakia. Now, I'm going to tell you something else that you might find kind of
interesting.
The World Trade Center attack was set up by the United States. I'm not a conspiracy theorist. What the United States did was make an environment that made it first of all, they prodded the hornet's nest with putting troops into Saudi Arabia and other places considered holy for the Islamic religion. And then we allowed our defenses to disappear, and it was just a question of time. It didn't have to be the World Trade Center.
So, Dr. Gelman,
it could have been the Golden Gate Bridge or the Sears Tower.
So, Dr. Gelman,
continue.
You don't...
The United States, let's go on to the gun control, okay? The United States government has set up an environment of gun-free zones and publicizes them so that the nuts in our society, of which there's a number of nuts, and the degenerates and the crazies, will know that there's no guns against them in schools, there's no guns against them in theaters or the mall. Now, these nutcases, why do you suppose they go to a school? Why don't they go to a police station and shoot up a police station? Because these people who do this, they know they're going to die. They know they're going to be killed in the assault. They want to cause as much suffering as possible. And so they go to places that they know ahead of time are defenseless. Yes, the government does. It's not just with guns, it's with the wars. And I would think that you would agree with that. I would think that you would agree that the United States gets involved in foreign conflict by creating environments which makes it appear that we're the innocent and the other side is the aggressor, and we have to defend ourselves against these horrible aggressors.
No, I do agree with that, and I feel like a lot more people are agreeing with that.
The United States does that in foreign policy. They're certainly going to do it on domestic policy.
I definitely agree with that. I feel like more people are agreeing with it, too, with the advent of the internet. People are starting to wake up. You're not saying that the government was actually, proactively going into the World Trade Center and rigging up bombs and stuff, detonating it. They just allowed...
Let me tell you about that. What I think is the government puts up those guys to make these guys look like they're crazy in order to deter people from the real conspiracy that's going on. So when you have these nutcases out there talking about the government went in there and planted all these charges up and down the elevator shafts and then coordinated them with these planes crashing in, which is well beyond what our government can do anyway. By putting those people forward, it makes it look like that conspiracy theorists are a bunch of fruitcakes, and therefore distracts the American people from the true conspiracy which does exist, is which the United States is an aggressor nation that has an agenda, that always wants to make itself look like the innocent bystander. But let me ask you this question. If you're Afghanistan or some other country, are you crazy enough to attack the United States unless you thought that you had no other option? I mean, give me a break. You know the United States is going to pulverize you back into the, well, they're already in the dark ages over there. But I mean, don't you find it funny that like Saddam Hussein or some of these other countries that would be pulverized in a minute by the United States, we actually attack the United States? I mean, would you do that? Would you go to the biggest, baddest bully in your school and kick him in the butt? Are you kidding me? You know, I mean, let's be realistic. I mean, these people may be crazy, but it doesn't mean they're stupid. I mean, why would they do that? It makes no sense. The United States creates these environments, creates these scenarios to justify to the American people. And the American people who are basically a peace-loving people, and I believe that, who are basically believe in liberty and independence and in fair play. The American people are like anybody else, and they can get emotionally involved. If the government creates an environment which makes American people mad, you know, you send jet planes into the World Trade Center, heck, the American people are going to get mad about that. They're going to want to respond. Well, the American government understands that. So you invite the Islamists to attack the World Trade Center or something else. You invite the Japanese to attack Pearl Harbor. You invite the Spanish to blow up the Maine or something like that. I mean, we do it over and over and over again. You think we'd learn? You know, there are American troops in 150 countries. Doesn't that, and we make that a commercial like something to be proud of. Why are there American troops in 150 countries? I mean, tell you, I wouldn't want Soviet troops in my country, and I can bet you there's a lot of countries that don't want American troops in their countries either.
Yeah, absolutely. A lot of people are so ethnocentric, though, and they don't think like that. They don't put themselves in the shoes of other countries. If you had some, you know, like you said, Soviets occupying America, you would be totally against that, and you would want them out. So, obviously...
My gosh, we got so upset with the Soviets in Cuba, which is not even our country, we almost went to nuclear war.
That's right. It wasn't even in our country. It was just close to it. Are you a gun owner?
Yeah, I'm a gun owner. I'm not a hunter. I really can't say I'm much of an enthusiast, but I do own guns.
Do you own like assault weapons and stuff like that?
Not really. I have semi-automatic pistols. I have basically for home defense. I have shotguns.
Right. There's a video out right now. I wonder if you've seen it. Have you seen the Sandy Hook shooting fully exposed? It's by this production company called Think Outside the TV. It's crazy. They list all these, it's like a half an hour long. You should really see it. I heard you talking about...
Is that on YouTube or something?
Yeah.
Is that on YouTube or something?
Yeah. Last night in researching you and some of your past shows, I was listening to some of the stuff that you were talking about on gun control. And anyway, that's why I wanted to bring it up to you today. But this is very interesting, though, this video. It talks about, like, what are the 2005 London subway bombings, September 11th, 2001 World Trade Center attack, and the December 14th, 2012 Sandy Hook shooting all have in common? Answer: a version or versions of the Department of Homeland Security were either running drills in the exact same area at the exact same time, or they were conducting courses on the same exact subject matter as the corresponding disasters. The Connecticut's Department of Emergency Services and Public Protection, FEMA, was conducting a course on that specific day, December 14, 2012, in Bridgeport, Connecticut, which is like 20 minutes away, on like the same street, between the hours of 9 a.m. and 4 p.m. And the course was entitled Planning for the Needs of Children in Disasters. It's just kind of crazy that was going on. Also, Victoria Soto, that teacher that died, someone created a Rest in Peace Victoria Soto Facebook page on December 10th, 4 days before the shooting occurred. There's all these other circumstances, but there's like a list, and it's crazy when you see this stuff. I feel like we're starting to uncover these things, though, a lot quicker because of the internet and social networking and stuff.
Well, I think that's true. I mean, it is an information pathway which gives you access to, my gosh, just about everything that ever existed. But the thing with that is you want to find something, you can probably find it if you look hard enough.
Yeah, I know. So how do you feel about conspiracy theories in general and stuff? I know you're in Texas. Alex Jones, do you ever listen to that? Do you ever listen to Alex Jones?
I don't. I think I listened to him just to see who it was, but I really don't. I don't listen to radio. I don't listen to much of anything anymore.
You don't?
I don't watch the news. I don't listen to radio. I don't go to blogger site. I don't any site, liberal, conservative, whatever you want to call it. I don't do it any. I stopped doing that for probably a year or so ago.
Don't you feel that like the whole thing with liberal and conservative is just complete and total nonsense? Like we're sitting here trying to categorize ourselves, but really when we sit here and we have a discussion, there's a lot of similarities there. You know, they said some of our founding fathers, they said, watch out for the two-party system because it's just a fake choice. They both do the same thing, really.
No, I agree. It's just to distract the American people. They make it seem, the problem is the liberals. The problem is the conservatives. Okay, it's a mess because the liberals are in charge. Put the conservatives in there and it'll be better. And then the liberals say, no, it's a mess because the conservatives are in charge. Put the liberals in there and be better. So we all tend to think that, oh, my goodness, that all we need to do is change the managers. But it's the system itself that's been corrupted. You know what it is? It's like, well, like you're Ohio State and I'm Michigan. And we go there and we just at each other's throats. We're spectators and we're at each other's throats because you want Ohio State and I want Michigan. And if Ohio State's you're happy and I'm unhappy and vice versa. Let me tell you, those football players don't know us from a hole in the wall. And the thing is, we get so emotionally involved, we forget that it's a football game. Okay, and it's a football game. It doesn't matter if Ohio State is playing or Michigan or Florida or Notre Dame. It doesn't matter really. I mean, it's a football game whether Notre Dame wins or Alabama wins. It's still a football game. And what we need to understand, it doesn't matter if it's Democrat or Republican, conservative or liberal. It's still the government. And the government exists for the government. And whoever's in there, politicians are interested in one thing, to control the lives of other people. And they can call themselves conservatives or liberals, Democrats or Republicans. It doesn't matter. When push comes to shove, when it comes between protecting government and protecting the people, the politician will always protect the government. Let me give you an example. If a fan jumps onto a field and goes after a ball player, both teams beat up that fan, okay? So the government is in it for itself. Democrats and Republicans, they belong to the government. They belong to different country clubs, but they still belong to country clubs. And you and I, we're looking in the window, outside looking in. Neither team gives a care about us. They're only interested in themselves. That's why they're such buddies with each other.
Do you think there's anything above the politicians? Do you think there's anybody pulling the strings?
Oh, well, yes and no. I mean, yes, there are. Look, our politicians are mediocrities. I don't know if you've spoken with any of them, but they really haven't gotten much upstairs. Basically, they're, friendly personalities that are photogenic, but for the most part, they're kind of airheads. Now, is there some great conspiracy, some Bilderberg or something? No. But there is a conspiracy, but it's not a conspiracy of Rothschilds or Rockefellers. It's a conspiracy of psychology and mentality. There are people in the world who consider themselves above others, who are elitists, whether it's a George Soros or whoever. They consider themselves just better than the rest of us. And they're going to do what they can to make sure that what they believe and what they want done is what gets done. Now, George Soros is not going to run for president, but he's going to support a bunch of people who do run for president. And so it's not this conspiracy of wealthy families. It's a conspiracy of mindset. I'm sure you've heard of eugenics.
Yes.
The science, or so-called science of eugenics, that believes that there are those born genetically superior to others. And, of course, there are those who define themselves as genetically superior, whether they go to Harvard or Yale or Columbia or Oxford, or the Sorbonne or whatever. They consider themselves smarter than anybody else. And they believe it is their either obligation or their duty to take care of the rest of us who are not quite up to their level of intelligence. It's not our fault that we're not smart. They're just born smarter than we are. And the problem that we have, the problem that you and I have, according to them, is that we don't understand that they're smarter than we are. We don't understand that we ought to let them make the decisions for us because we just don't have it. If you don't believe that's true, let me point you to the Supreme Court. 9 justices, 7 from Harvard, 2 from Yale. Would you call that an even distribution?
But actually, like Sotomayor, she might have gone to one of those schools, but she came from a very eclectic background, right? Puerto Rican background and everything like that. Do you think that she feels like that? She feels...
I can't remember. I don't know if she's Harvard or Yale. But the bottom line is, that doesn't matter. That doesn't matter. She's in the club now. Mm-hmm. She's in the club, okay? She's in the elite club. I don't care if she was a street cleaner in Puerto Rico, wherever she comes from. The fact of the matter is that now she's in the club. She's one of them. She's not one of us, okay? That's just the way it is. Barack Obama is one of them. He's not one of us. George Bush is one of them. He's not one of us. Didn't it take you as a bit of a surprise to watch Bill Clinton traipsing around the country with arch enemy George H.W. Bush, going around friendly like? Didn't that take you aback a little bit? These two arch enemies going around hugging each other. Doesn't it bother you to see Barack Obama hug a dictator like Hugo Chavez and bow down to a Saudi Arabian potentate dictator? Doesn't that kind of stuff bother you? Doesn't it bother you when George Bush sends Brent Scowcroft and whoever else he sent out to Beijing 6 weeks after they slaughtered those people in Tiananmen Square to toast the Chinese dictators? Doesn't that stuff bother you? These people all belong to the same club. You know, the Henry Kissingers, the George Bushes, the Richard Nixons, the détente people, they're not us.
But there's nothing
They belong to a, they're you know, Nixon and Bush and all the rest of them. Democrat, Republican, they're not us. It's them.
So there's nothing to this Bilderberg group, though. There's nothing to the Bilderberg group and all that stuff, you said?
No, I really haven't looked into it. I think, you know, why get enmeshed in things like that? That's been going on supposedly for years and years and years. People change in and out. I keep telling you, it's a conspiracy of the like-minded. You know, I mean, George Soros wasn't around 50 years ago. These people, it's a conspiracy of the like-minded. That's why they all get along. They all have the same beliefs. They all belong to the same club of elitists. Why do you suppose we have all these people in the Treasury Department coming out of Harvard and places like that and then botch up the whole economy? I mean, I don't know where you went to school, but I know where I went to school. I don't even need to apply. No, I want to go to apply to be the Secretary of Treasury. You know, get out of here. You know, don't ever come here again. You're one of those lowlifes from some middling university. We don't talk to people like you. Look, my daughter went to Harvard, okay? She got interviewed at law firms, and I can't even walk in the door. The only way I can walk in the door is say I'm visiting her, okay? I mean, I need not apply. They don't care what my grades are. They don't care what my LSAT score is. They don't care how smart. They couldn't care less, okay? So they select from a small group of individuals who spend all their time talking about how great each other is. I was at dinner one time in a restaurant in Washington, D.C., and guess who I saw walk in? Alan Greenspan and Tom Lehrer sitting together at the same table with some other phony baloney elitist types. Now, what is that all about? Isn't Tom Lehrer supposed to be an independent journalist? And, you know, what is Tom Lehrer eating dinner with Alan Greenspan for? Talk about two of the most corrupt people in the United States. I mean, this is their little clubs. We don't belong. They pretend that they represent us, but they don't represent us. They're part of the elite, whether they call themselves liberal or conservative, whether they call themselves Democrat or Republican. You and I need not apply.
I have a friend who went to Dartmouth College, and I went to University of Florida, which is actually really pretty decent school for Florida. But she looks at me crazy. Like, that's a good school? Yeah, right. I went to Dartmouth. But, like, your daughter, though, your daughter's in the club now, right? Isn't she in the club now? A lot of doors are opening for her?
Yes, absolutely. No two ways about it. She's my daughter, but I'm realistic. She belongs to the club. She hangs out with Supreme Court people. She hangs out with government senators and all that. That's who they deal with. They deal with the big shots. People that call her will not return my phone call and only call me if they want a contribution. My daughter is very bright, and she's a very nice person, but she belongs to the club, and I don't. And I can see it. I can see it, okay?
Yeah.
It's as plain to me as they. It is like I'm a sandlot person, and she's a major leaguer. Same kind of thing. It'd be like you trying to walk onto the field in the New York Yankees. Okay, forget it. Not happening.
Right. God, it's so crazy though. I'm just trying to think of if I was in that situation where I was actually in like a Harvard or a Yale or anything like that. You know, it's I feel like it's a kind of the same thing though that we were talking about. Like if it doesn't affect you personally, you don't really get it though. Like I was saying that with my father's skin cancer and everything. You know, because once that happened, then I saw that this thing was kind of real. You know, and he had a pre-existing condition where he couldn't get insurance. It's the same kind of thing as like actually experiencing something. Like for instance, like I'm in New York, right? I'm in New York.
But you see,
the scene. Hold on one second. I just want to finish this point really quick. Like I'm in New York.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
And we just had the super storm Sandy came through, and a lot of people. I lost my power for like 4 or 5 days or whatever. I'm from Florida originally, so it doesn't bother me whatsoever because I'm used to hurricanes, and it's like a little vacation for me. But there are some people in the city, like on the Upper West Side, Upper East Side, like all that. There's probably half of the city, the northern section, had all their power the whole time. And if you're interacting with these people through work or social events or whatever, and if they did not have never lost their power, they didn't know where you were coming from, that you were so mad and irritated that you had no power. You know what I'm saying? The haves and the have-nots.
Well, let me just say this about that. The entire state of New Jersey isn't worth $50 billion. You could rebuild the entire state. That is going to be one of the biggest scams since Katrina, where most of that money is going to end up in the hands of politically connected contractors. So don't kid yourself. I've had power failures here where I live as well, and sometimes they're a little more widespread. Sometimes they're just my house or a couple other houses. I don't expect the government to come in and give me money because of that. New Jersey is the mafia capital of the United States, so I'm not surprised. And that guy Christie is nothing but a fat jerk. Excuse the fat part. And the fact of the matter is, he's a mafioso, and that money is all going to crooked contractors. It's not going to do anything for the average citizen. The state of New Jersey isn't worth $50 billion. And something else, I don't want my tax dollars fixing up somebody's leaky house in New Jersey. Okay? It's my money. I earned it. I don't want to give it to anybody in New Jersey. I don't know anybody in New Jersey. I don't care about anybody in New Jersey. And I don't care about New Jersey, period. It really irritates me.
Dr. Gelman, isn't your show on New Jersey? It's on WVNJ, 1160 AM.
I don't care. I mean, theoretically, it can be all over the world. I don't care. I had somebody call me in from Argentina one time. I don't want to give them money either. Okay? I don't care. Let me be a little more clear. I don't care about New Jersey, and I don't care about New York, and I don't care about California, and I don't care about anybody who lives there. Okay? Does that make it, I may feel sorry for them, but don't come and point the gun to my head and say somebody in California needs the Golden Gate Bridge repainted, give us your money. I want to give them money, I'll do it. I don't want the government coming in and telling me that I got to bail out somebody's waterlogged house in New Jersey. Not the government's job, and I don't want it done. The last group that I want to determine where my money is going is a bunch of crooks in the federal government.
All right. Lastly, can we talk about this? Can we talk about the pro-choice Roe v. Wade? Your stance on that stuff?
Yeah, sure. What do you want to know?
Okay. Well, yeah, I just want to know where do you stand on pro-choice and.
Okay, the pro-choice arguments, the points they make, have no validity whatsoever. Not a single point presented by the pro-choice movement has any scientific or legal basis. Every single thing that they say is invalid. Therefore, their movement is invalid. Let me give you one salient point because I know we're kind of running out of time.
Okay.
They talk about allowing the abortion of the in utero infant. And one thing you need to understand, that abortion does not automatically mean the killing of the in utero infant. But that was something made up by the Roe v. Wade decision by the justices that perverted the definition of what abortion is. I'll leave that aside for a moment. There are no circumstances in the pregnant woman which require the killing of the in utero infant. There is not a single medical circumstance which exists in the pregnant woman that is due to her pregnancy that requires the intentional killing of the in utero infant. There are conditions which may require a preterm delivery in which the termination of pregnancy is required because the process of pregnancy itself is hurting the mother's health. and those are well-defined clinical conditions. However, what is required is the termination of the pregnancy, which is not the same as the termination of the in utero infant's life. The pregnancy can be terminated with the delivery of a viable infant, which happens all the time, by the way. That's a perfectly common occurrence where you do a premature delivery because of concerns about the mother's health. Now, if it's a very premature delivery, which has to be done because of mother's health, the infant may well die because of the environment, just too little, too young, too premature to survive. But the intentional killing of the in utero infant is never, ever needed, never necessary under any circumstances. I am against any abortion of life without due process. The Constitution says life cannot be taken without due process. The in utero infant is not given any due process because in the Roe v. Wade decision, the Supreme Court justices said that the in utero infant is not a person. Just the way they did in the Dred Scott decision that said slavery is legal because the slave is not a citizen and therefore does not have the rights of the citizen under the Constitution. The Roe v. Wade decision that the in utero infant is not a person and therefore does not have the rights of a person as delineated in the Constitution. The people who support pro-choice are the same kind of people who supported slavery. How's that?
Well, that's a very interesting comment there. I've never heard this before. I'm in awe.
Well, you know what you can do? Look up the Dred Scott decision, see the rationale, then go to the Roe v. Wade decision, and then word search person. Just go word search, just go on to find law, the Roe v. Wade find law, punch in, to find in person, and it'll scroll you down to where they discuss that the infant is not a person. When you do the decision, the Dred Scott decision, look up citizen, and you'll see the same thing. The slave is not a citizen.
Okay, so because the in utero infant is not a person, so therefore, what are you saying here exactly? Because I'm a little slow, I guess.
I didn't say that. I'm saying that's what the Supreme Court says.
That's what the Supreme Court says.
Because it's not no. The Fifth Amendment said life cannot be taken without due process. Okay, a person's life cannot be taken without due process. Therefore, for the abortion of life to occur in utero, in order that the infant is not protected by the Constitution, the Supreme Court had to say that the in utero infant is not a person.
So you're saying that
if the in utero infant is a person, then it falls under due process, and then has to be determined. Can't be determined by a doctor. Has to be determined by the legal system.
So, sir, are you saying that the in utero infant is a person?
And it is a person. The Supreme Court said the in utero infant is not a person.
Right. So you've had a lot of experiences with this being a physician. Do you deal with infants at all or anything like that in your medical career?
Oh yeah, I mean we have a large neonatal unit of 64 beds. We have almost 2,000. We do 9,000 deliveries a year, and about 1,500 of those end up in the intensive care unit, usually for a short period of time. We deal with infants. We have infants survive that are born at 23 weeks post gestation. At gestation, so post gestation. I always get confused with those two. And post gestation. So yes, I'm very familiar with. Of course, we do not permit abortions in our institution, and we will not do abortions in our institution. It doesn't matter what Barack Obama and the rest of his fascist gang wants us to do.
So wait a second. Under Obamacare, can they dictate that? Can they make you have to do?
Yes, they can, because the insurance companies will be forced to follow the mandates of the government, and the government's going to require them to cover abortion.
And what are you going to do in that circumstance when that's
yes?
What are you going to do in that circumstance when those start implementing? I know it takes a little time, but Obamacare is starting to implement now. When that starts or whatever, and then they require your institution.
We're not going to do it. We're not going to perform abortions. We're not Nazis, okay? We're not Nazis. We don't kill human beings because the government tells us to do it. We're not here to follow orders of unjust orders. Okay, we're human beings first. Now you're crossing the line. Now they're crossing the line. The government's not going to come and tell us that we're going to murder the most innocent of human lives because they're going to threaten us with confiscation of Medicaid and Medicare funds. The heck with them.
Huh.
You know, I mean, look the way, how do we look at the Germans that allowed what happened over there? How do we look at them as something less than good, don't we? That they're evil. And we're going to allow ourselves to fall into the same trap. But we're going to allow ourselves, because of material gain, we're going to allow ourselves to go against our conscience and allow the murdering of the most innocent of human beings in order to protect our material advantage. We're not going to do that. We're doctors first.
What if a woman is raped?
Well, there was the Kennedy versus New Orleans decision of 2005 said that a rapist cannot be executed for the crime of rape if the victim is not killed in the process. So a rapist cannot be killed or executed, okay, for the crime of rape. But the government says that the innocent party, which is the in utero infant, can be executed because of rape. To me, there's something wrong there. You won't kill the perpetrator, but you'll kill an innocent victim. There's no justification. Look, I understand the emotional component of it. I understand all that. I'm trying to be as objective as possible. The fact of the matter is that if an infant is conceived as a result of rape, the infant is not guilty of anything, and it's hard for me to justify the killing of a human life, even because of an act of violence against the woman.
So what should
happen?
happen?
Not that I don't understand, the sentiment behind it, but then again, I'm against the death penalty also.
You are?
So yes.
The
only thing that I want is incarceration without parole for those that have committed a crime in which the person should never be released into society again. I don't agree with the death penalty. I think it's, even though it's due process, that is due process, so at least they have due process. The death penalty makes me uncomfortable. I really don't think it's up to us, except in self-defense, to kill another human being. I just don't. I mean, incarceration for life, fine. Execution,
How do you feel about the legalization of marijuana for recreational use?
If you want to use marijuana, use marijuana. If you want to use cocaine, use cocaine. If you want to use morphine, use morphine. What is that to me? I mean, alcohol is probably more toxic than marijuana. If marijuana is toxic at all, I don't know. But the thing is, that's a personal deal. Now, if you're inebriated on marijuana and you're in a car and you cause an accident, well, fine, you're penalized the same way you're penalized now if you're inebriated because of alcohol. The government has no business getting involved in the personal business of an individual. If someone who wants to smoke marijuana, why would I care? What should it make a difference to me? Now, if he comes to my house to rob me to get money from marijuana, but that's different. But that's not because of marijuana, that's because he's robbing me. As far as I'm concerned, it ought to be legalized. I think the reason it's not legalized is because the government makes money off of it with the DEA and their huge bureaucracy. Also, it allows the government to come into your life, into my life. And, I mean, if you smoke marijuana or I smoke marijuana and I'm not hurting anybody, I'm breaking the law, aren't I? Which allows the government to come in and do all kinds of things to me. That's why the government wants to make it illegal, so that they'll have an excuse to come after you and to come after me. They don't care about marijuana. They just want to have the excuse to come after you or after me.
Right, yeah, and then they could put you in prison, and that's a revenue stream too in itself. Putting people in prison for little things like that.
Let's not discard the revenue producing that comes from that these drugs are illegal. You have a massive bureaucracy that takes billions of dollars a year. You have tens of thousands of law enforcement individuals that exist because of that. You have all kinds of under-the-table dealings with politicians and the rest with drug money, and we all know that. You have all these bankers and other supposedly regular types that do quite well in that kind of an industry. It's the money stream is the reason. It's the money stream and the allowance of government to control you by making things illegal. They can make anything illegal that they want to. Cocaine used to be put in Coca-Cola and was passed off as good. Even songs were about it. I get no kick from cocaine or whatever. I mean, the thing is that You want to take cocaine, you want to take marijuana, that's up to you. I'm not, not like anything else. You don't sell alcohol to school kids. You don't sell. You can't sell cigarettes to school kids. So you're not going to be allowed to sell the marijuana to school kids. One of the reasons that school kids want to get into marijuana is because there's some excitement associated with doing the illicit. That's why these kids, they want to do illicit things. So it titillates them to go and smoke this stuff. The fact of the matter is,
you tell anybody you can't do anything,
and smoke and whatever, go ahead.
You tell anybody you can't do anything enough, they're going to do it. But to
that's the natural thing. You can't do that. They go ahead and do it. You got kids, I got kids. You tell them you can't do it. What's the next thing they do? They do it.
Right, exactly. But I wouldn't lump cocaine and marijuana together. One thing that I find really interesting is the fact that marijuana is illegal, but then legal heroin is, like Oxycontins, which is so disgusting. Like I was telling you before, I'm from Florida originally, and Florida is like the capital of Oxycontins. Like 85% of the prescriptions written in the country come from Florida. Anybody can go down there with an MRI and get a prescription filled. That's legal heroin. What's your thoughts on prescription opiates such as Oxycontin?
Well, you have to be, look, those are, you know what? If you want it, take it. Okay, legalize the whole deal if you want, because addictive, non-addictive, anything can be addictive. All right, so I'm just telling you, look.
Yeah, but you don't think opiates are a little bit more? They're like physically addictive though for people, and they just dish that out like candy to all kinds of people. People coming back from Iraq and whatnot.
Isn't alcohol addictive?
Yeah, it's not addictive like that. That's way more addictive, though. Opiates and heroin.
What about the internet? Now they say isn't gambling addictive? What about the internet? And even people saying the social media, now you're addicted to that. The bottom line is, it's your life. Your life. Why should I tell you what to do with your life? If you do something to me because whatever, then that's different, and I'll defend myself. But if you want to take morphine, take morphine. You want to take aspirin, take aspirin. You want to take marijuana, take marijuana. What do I care? What do I care? I mean, you can go off the air or go home right now and go snort cocaine or go inject yourself with heroin or morphine. What do I care? Why should it make any difference to me? I mean, I don't want you to get sick, and I'd rather you be a healthy person. I don't think it's a good idea. But then again, I don't think people should be drinking alcohol. I don't think people should be smoking cigarettes. But, I mean, they do. And if that's what they want to do, that's what they want to do. I think it's bad that they do that. I don't think it should be illegal. And I don't think smoking marijuana or taking opiates should be illegal either. Now, if I'm an airplane pilot and I'm taking marijuana or opiates before I fly and I test positive, that's it. You're done. You're no longer an airline pilot. That's like if you're the same thing with alcohol, isn't it? You can't be inebriated with alcohol and be an airline and fly a plane. If you do that, you're out. You're finished. Mm-hmm. So I mean, why do you draw a distinction between alcohol and opiates? Why? There's a lot of evidence that alcohol is a lot more physically harming than opiates are.
No, you make a good point. You do make a good point. So you're in your utopian society of America. Basically, it's all the Wild Wild West. You could do whatever you want to. There's no laws. Drugs are legal.
Well, no, I didn't say that.
Well, what do you think? What do you tell me?
What is it? Personal behavior. If you can't go out and steal from somebody or murder somebody, which of course is what the government does routinely. So, I mean, utopia doesn't mean, I know what you call it utopian. I want to live in a civil, ordered society in which there are laws so that people can't come and murder me or steal from me or rob from me or do nasty things like that. So it's not do whatever you want. So what I'm saying is that I want to live in a constitutional society where the individual is allowed to live his or her life independent of government interference, and where if I'm not harming anybody, then I ought to be allowed to do whatever I want to do, and my neighbor ought to be allowed to do whatever he or she wants to do, as long as they don't harm anybody. And while we're on that, I think that anyone who wants to live in the United States ought to be allowed to live in the United States. I mean, I would get rid of the welfare program, of course, which is the magnet, but it seems to me there's something wrong. If somebody wants to be an American, why should we deny them the privilege of being an American? You would think that would be something that we would want. In the Great Depression, there were 150 million Americans, and we had a 25% unemployment. Now we have 320 million Americans, and we have an 8% unemployment. You know, so everybody's worried about, oh, you bring all these people in, there'll be no jobs. But look, there's more jobs than people, okay? The only reason people don't work is because of government skewing the whole system. But, you know, I'm very uncomfortable with this whole immigration deal. To me, I don't like it, the way we treat people who speak Spanish like they're some kind of different race of people. They're like anybody. They're human beings, like Italians, which you mentioned before, or Germans, anybody else. Italians came here and spoke Italian, they assimilated. The Germans came here and spoke German, they assimilated. We won't allow the Spanish-speaking people to assimilate. The government does that on purpose in order to create a subculture. It seems to me anybody wants to be an American, and I don't care if they're from Africa or from China or from Russia or from Mexico or Ecuador. You want to be an American and play by American rules, and why should we deny them that privilege? This whole immigration thing is just a concoction made by the government for its own ends, Democrat and Republican. I live in a community that's 95% Spanish-speaking, all over the Latin American world. And I don't go out there thinking, oh, I'm a Jewish guy, and those guys are from somewhere else, and we're different. No, they're not different. They're exactly the same. There's good and there's bad in all. And when I look at them as a patient, you know what? They got the same feelings. They got the same insides. They got the same diseases as anybody else. And how people can go around saying, oh, because you're brown skinned or you're black skinned or you're Asian or something like that, that somehow you're different. They're not different. That's not what this country's about. This country is about that we're not different, that we're the same, and we're going to treat everybody the same, and that the laws in this country are going to make it that everyone's treated the same, and everybody's going to have the same equal opportunities. Doesn't mean everybody's going to be rich. Doesn't mean that I can guarantee you're not going to be poor. But the bottom line is that we're going to be colorblind and blind to ethnicity, and we're going to treat everybody as a human being. And I'm telling you, we ought. Someone wants to be an American. I don't care where you come from. You want to be an American, then I'm an American because I was born here. My parents are Americans because they came here. And they came here because they wanted to come here. And if somebody wants to come here and be an American, then they ought to be allowed to do that. They ought to be allowed to, and I mean, the whole thing is just wrong.
It is. It reminds me of the old Buddhist affirmation. They say, there's nobody better than me. There's nobody above me. We're all the same. We're all human. We're one human race, you know? And we're all going to die someday. That's what people forget. People don't realize that, you know? Everybody's going to die. Like that guy, George Soros, you're talking about. You're talking about eugenics and all this stuff. That guy doesn't know that mantra that I just spouted. I feel like everybody is just one. We are. We're all a human race. Doesn't matter what language you speak, what color you are, what religion you subscribe to, whatever it is. Doesn't matter how intelligent you are, whatever. You can be the best you can be with sheer will if you really want to truly get out there and get an education and better yourself and work towards a goal or whatever. But some people might not have that goal. Some people just might want to live an average, mediocre life and just get by and have well-being and health and whatnot or whatever, and to each his own.
That's across all ethnicities, all colors, all languages.
Everything. Anybody. Doesn't matter who you
Right.
are. We're all the same. Nobody's above anybody else. Nobody's beneath anybody else. And really, when it comes down to it, with all this stuff that you've been talking about, it's really like, it might not be an active conspiracy or whatever, but somehow the like-minded people get together and they feel like they're better than everybody else. So, and that's what we have.
Yeah, and that's called government.
And that's called government.
1, 2, 3. FatEnzo.com. 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 Enzo.com. That's Enzo.com. That's Enzo.com.